Have you ever wondered how some corporations exert a surprising amount of influence on government decisions? This is where the concept of lobbying comes into play. Lobbying, in essence, is a business practice where corporations, organizations, or even individuals try to influence government decisions or policies. It's a practice as old as governance itself, dating back to ancient civilizations where merchants and traders sought favors from the ruling class. In modern times, lobbying has become a sophisticated and strategic endeavor, involving a complex web of relationships, negotiations, and advocacy. Now you might be thinking, what's so wrong about that? And you're right. Lobbying, in many ways, is a necessary aspect of our democratic process. It brings diverse voices to the table, representing various sectors and interests, and aids in shaping policies that reflect a wide range of perspectives. It's an avenue for businesses to communicate their needs to policymakers, ensuring that the economic landscape remains conducive for growth and innovation. But, like any tool, lobbying can be misused. If wielded without checks and balances, it can lead to an imbalance of power, where the interests of a few overshadow the needs of the many. For example, when large corporations use their financial muscle to push for policies that favor them, it can stifle competition, create monopolies, and limit consumer choices. It can also lead to regulatory capture, where the very institutions meant to oversee industries end up being influenced by them. This misuse of lobbying can have serious implications for businesses, especially small and medium-sized enterprises. They may find themselves on an uneven playing field, struggling to compete against larger corporations with deep pockets and extensive lobbying networks. So, lobbying, while a legitimate and often necessary business practice, can have negative implications if not appropriately managed and regulated. It's a powerful tool that, when used responsibly, can contribute to a healthy and vibrant economy. But when misused, it can distort the market, hinder competition, and erode public trust. As we delve deeper, we will uncover the hidden aspects of lobbying and its impact on business. While lobbying can lead to beneficial policy changes, it can also lead to unfair advantages and distortions in the market. But how? Let's delve into the dark side of lobbying. Lobbying, at its core, is about influencing decisions. Businesses lobby to gain an edge or to protect their interests. But this power can be misused, leading to policies that favor certain corporations at the expense of others. This creates an uneven playing field, where the loudest voice, not the best idea, often prevails. Imagine a small business trying to compete with a corporate giant who has the funds and resources to sway policy decisions. This is not just a hypothetical scenario. It's a reality that many businesses face daily. The result? A market distorted by the influence of money and power, not by the quality of products or services. Moreover, lobbying can breed potential for corruption. With hefty sums of money involved, it's not uncommon for ethical boundaries to blur. Lobbyists and policymakers may find themselves on a slippery slope, where favors and influence are traded for money and power. This breeds mistrust, tainting the image of businesses and undermining the integrity of our political process. But it's not just businesses that suffer. The ripple effects of unchecked lobbying can be felt throughout the economy. Unfavorable policies can stifle competition, limit innovation, and impede economic growth. It can lead to higher prices for consumers and fewer choices in the market. In the long run, it's the everyday people who bear the brunt of these consequences. So what does this mean for entrepreneurs and businesses? It means that to thrive in such an environment, you need to be aware of these challenges. Understanding the landscape is the first step in navigating it effectively. The repercussions of unchecked lobbying can be far-reaching, affecting not just businesses, but the economy as a whole. It's a sobering reminder that while lobbying has its place, it's a tool that needs careful regulation and constant scrutiny to ensure it serves the interests of all, not just a select few. One of the most powerful examples of lobbying's negative effects can be seen in the pharmaceutical industry. In the intricate web of business and politics, the pharmaceutical industry, often referred to as Big Pharma, shines a glaring spotlight on the potential pitfalls of lobbying. The industry spends billions each year lobbying government bodies, aiming to influence policies and legislation in their favor. But what are the consequences? Let's dive into the world of patent extensions. Big pharma companies often lobby for extensions on their drug patents. Sounds harmless, right? Yet this practice stifles competition, keeping prices artificially high. It denies generic manufacturers the chance to produce affordable versions of life-saving drugs, keeping them out of reach for many who need them most. Take, for instance, the case of a life-saving EpiPen, a device used to treat severe allergic reactions. A single pack's price skyrocketed from $100 in 2009 to over $600 by 2016. This price hike was partly due to a lack of competition, fueled by effective lobbying. Then there's the issue of pay for delay. This is where brand-name pharmaceutical companies pay generic manufacturers to delay the release of cheaper, generic versions of their drugs. Again, this practice keeps prices high and reduces access to affordable medication. We must also consider the lobbying against transparency in drug pricing. Pharmaceutical companies often argue that revealing the breakdown of drug costs would harm competition. However, critics say this lack of transparency allows companies to charge exorbitant prices without justification. These examples are just the tip of the iceberg. It's a complex issue, and it's clear that lobbying practices have a significant impact on the pharmaceutical industry. This impact often results in high drug prices and a lack of competition, which can be detrimental to consumers' health and wallets. These examples underscore the need for policy reform and transparency in lobbying practices. And this is where we, as informed individuals and entrepreneurs, can play a role. By understanding these practices and their effects, we can advocate for change, promoting ethical business practices, and a fairer playing field for all. Another sector where lobbying has made headlines is environmental policies. The constant tug-of-war between profits and preservation often leads to an intriguing clash of interests. Let's take a closer look at how lobbying can influence this sector. In the past few decades, fossil fuel companies have been known to lobby extensively, aiming to slow down or obstruct the implementation of environmentally friendly policies. Their motivation is simple: maintaining their market share and profitability. However, this short-term gain often comes at a significant long-term cost. An infamous example of this is the lobbying efforts surrounding the Clean Air Act in the United States. Despite the act's aim to reduce harmful pollutants, certain companies lobbied tirelessly to weaken its regulations. The result? The act's full potential was compromised, leading to continued pollution and associated public health issues. But it's not just in America. Globally, fossil fuel companies have been reported to spend hundreds of millions of dollars annually on lobbying against climate change policies. These efforts have often resulted in delayed action, hindering progress towards achieving global sustainability goals. Take the Paris Agreement, for instance. Designed to limit global warming, it has faced numerous challenges due to lobbying. Certain industries have argued that stricter regulations would result in job losses and economic downturns. While these concerns are valid, they often overshadow the pressing need for environmental action. The consequences of such lobbying efforts are clear. We see increased pollution, accelerated climate change, and deteriorating public health. These impacts are not just felt in the present, but will continue to affect generations to come. While lobbying can be a tool for businesses to express their interests, it becomes problematic when it obstructs policies designed for the greater good. It's a fine balancing act between economic growth and environmental preservation. These case studies clearly illustrate how lobbying can sway policymaking in ways that may not be in the public or environmental interest. The challenge moving forward is to ensure that the voices of all stakeholders are heard, not just those with the deepest pockets. Given these realities, how can we ensure that lobbying serves its intended purpose without leading to market distortions or unfair advantages? The answer, as it often is, lies in a combination of regulation, transparency, and individual responsibility. Let's start with regulation. Stricter rules around lobbying could help to level the playing field. This could include measures like caps on lobbying spending or rules that ensure all parties have an equal opportunity to make their case. It's important to remember, however, that regulation is not a silver bullet. We must be careful not to stifle the positive aspects of lobbying, the ability to advocate for beneficial changes and bring important issues to the forefront. Next comes transparency. Greater openness about who is lobbying, who they are lobbying for, and how much they are spending can help to hold all parties accountable. This could be facilitated by a public register of lobbyists or mandatory disclosure of lobbying activities. Transparency helps to ensure that lobbying is carried out in the light of day rather than in the shadows. Finally, individual responsibility. Entrepreneurs and businesses have a role to play in advocating for ethical lobbying practices. This could involve committing to ethical lobbying guidelines or choosing not to engage with lobbyists who do not meet certain standards. Businesses can also work to educate themselves and their staff about the potential pitfalls of lobbying and how to navigate them. We must remember that lobbying, like any tool, is not inherently good or bad. It is how it's used that determines its impact. If used responsibly, lobbying can be a powerful force for positive change. If used irresponsibly, it can lead to market distortions and unfair advantages. But it's not all doom and gloom. By taking a proactive approach, we can mitigate the negative impacts of lobbying. It's up to us to ensure that lobbying is used as a tool for good rather than a weapon for the few. By understanding and addressing the negative aspects of lobbying, we can work towards a more equitable and sustainable business environment.